Kira's entire body ached as she pressed herself deeper into the narrow space between two massive cargo containers. The metal floor of the ship was cold against her bruised violet skin, and every breath she took tasted like oil and recycled air. Her torn gray uniform, the one the slavers had forced her to wear, hung in ragged pieces around her thin frame. The shock collar around her neck had finally stopped working after her desperate escape, but the burn marks it left behind still throbbed with each heartbeat. She had been running for hours. First through the chaos of the slave transport when the pirates attacked. Then through the maze of docking bays at the station. She had seen this cargo ship with its loading ramp down and had taken her chance. Now she was here, hiding like a frightened animal, with no plan beyond surviving the next few minutes. The Valorian girl had heard stories about humans her whole life. They were the newcomers to galactic society, the species that no one could quite predict. Some said humans were kind and generous. Others whispered that they were violent and territorial. Her teachers at the colony school had warned that humans felt emotions more strongly than most species, which made them dangerous. They could be your friend one moment and your enemy the next. Kira had never met a human before the slavers took her. She had lived her whole life on a peaceful Valorian farming colony. She was only 16 solar cycles old when the raiders came. That was 63 days ago, though it felt like years. Heavy footsteps echoed through the cargo hold. Kira froze. She knew those were human footsteps. Humans walked differently than other species. Heavier. More solid. Each step seemed to shake the deck plates beneath her. "I know you're in here," a male voice called out. It was deep and rough, like gravel rolling down a hill. But it was not angry. Just tired. "The motion sensors picked you up 10 minutes ago." Kira's two hearts pounded so hard she thought they might burst from her chest. Her mandibles, the small insect-like features around her mouth that marked her as Valorian, clicked together rapidly. It was something her species did when they were terrified, and she could not stop it no matter how hard she tried. "Listen," the voice continued, and the footsteps came closer. "I'm not calling station security. I'm not calling anyone. But you're bleeding on my cargo, and that medical kit isn't going to walk itself over to you." Kira looked down and saw that he was right. Dark purple blood, her blood, had dripped onto the clean metal floor. She had not even realized she was still bleeding from the cuts on her arms. A bright beam of light swept across the tops of the containers. The human was searching for her with a flashlight. Kira squeezed her eyes shut and made herself as small as possible. Maybe if she stayed very still, he would give up and leave. "There you are," the voice said softly. Kira opened her eyes and looked up. A human man stood above her, shining his light down into her hiding spot. He was older than she expected. Gray hair mixed with dark brown, and his face had deep lines around the eyes and mouth. He wore a worn jacket that had been patched many times, and his boots were scuffed and old. His brown eyes studied her carefully, but there was no cruelty in them. Just something that looked almost like sadness. The man's hand moved toward his belt. Kira saw the weapon holstered there and pressed herself back against the wall. This was it. This was where he would hurt her, or stun her, or call someone to take her back to the slavers. But the human did not draw his weapon. Instead, he lowered himself down slowly, bending his knees with a small grunt of effort. He held both of his hands up, palms facing toward her, showing they were empty. "Easy now," he said in that same tired voice. "My name's Gordon. Gordon Pierce. This is my ship, the Wayfinder." He moved very slowly, reaching into a compartment on the wall behind him and pulling out a white case with a red medical symbol on it. "I'm going to set this medical kit down and back away, all right? You look like you've had a rough few days." Kira could not speak. Her whole body shook with fear and exhaustion and confusion. This human was not acting the way she expected. Where was the violence? Where was the anger? Gordon placed the white medical case on the floor and slid it gently across the deck toward her. Then he stood up, using the wall for support, and took 3 large steps backward. He put his hands in his jacket pockets and waited. "That collar around your neck," Gordon said after a moment, his eyes fixed on the burned metal ring. "That's a slave rig. Syndicate model, if I'm not mistaken." His jaw became tight and the muscles in his face hardened. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was flat and cold in a way that scared Kira more than shouting would have. "How long were you in their hold?" Kira's translator chip, the small device implanted behind her ear that let her understand other languages, buzzed to life. She had not spoken standard galactic in weeks. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. 63 days. Gordon was quiet for several long seconds. He turned away from her and walked to a control panel on the wall. His fingers moved over the buttons and screens, entering commands that Kira could not see. 63 days, Gordon repeated, talking more to himself than to her. The station authority is going to ping me in about 5 minutes. They'll ask if I've seen any escaped property. They always do when the syndicate loses something. He stopped pressing buttons and looked back at Kira over his shoulder. Do you know what I'm going to tell them? Kira shook her head slowly. Her mandibles clicked again. She had no idea what this human would do. Humans were unpredictable. Everyone said so. Gordon's face softened. The cold hardness left his eyes, and something almost gentle replaced it. It reminded Kira of how her father used to look at her when she was small and had scraped her knee. I'm going to tell them no, Gordon said simply. Because there's no property on my ship. Just a scared kid who needs help. He gestured toward the white medical case lying on the floor between them. Now, are you going to patch yourself up or do I need to do it? Fair warning, I'm a terrible medic. Did 3 months of basic field medicine in the military 20 years ago and barely passed. But I'll give it my best shot if you need me to. Kira stared at the medical kit. Then she looked at Gordon. Then back at the kit. Her hands trembled as she slowly reached out and pulled it toward her. For the first time in 63 days something changed inside her chest. The constant crushing weight of fear lifted just a tiny bit. Not much, but enough that she could take a full breath. Maybe not all humans were unpredictable in a bad way. Maybe some of them were unpredictable in a good way instead. Kira sat on an old toolbox in the cargo hold, her hands gripping the edge so tightly her knuckles turned a lighter shade of purple. Gordon knelt in front of her with a small electronic device in his weathered hands. The shock collar around her neck hummed with leftover energy, and every time Gordon's fingers got close to it, Kira flinched. I know, Gordon said quietly, not looking up from his work. I know it's scary. But this collar has a failsafe. If we don't remove it properly, it could discharge one more time. I need you to hold very still for me. Kira nodded but could not stop shaking. The collar had hurt her so many times over the past 63 days. Whenever she moved too slowly or spoke without permission, or even looked at the slavers the wrong way, they would press a button and pain would explode through her body. The memory of it made her mandibles click rapidly. Gordon noticed. He set down his tools and looked at her face for the first time since starting the work. His brown eyes were patient and calm. When I was in the military, I had to defuse explosives sometimes, he said. I was terrified every single time. My hands would shake just like yours are shaking now. But you know what helped? I would count backwards from 10. Real slow. Want to try it with me? Kira did not understand how counting would help, but she nodded anyway. 10, Gordon said, picking up his tools again. 9. 8. 7, Kira whispered, her voice trembling. 6. 5. 4. By the time they reached 1, Gordon had disconnected the main power cell. The collar's red light flickered and died. Then, with careful precision, he pressed 2 release points at the same time. The metal ring clicked open and fell into his hands. Kira gasped. She reached up and touched her neck. For the first time in months there was nothing there. Just her own skin, burned and sore but free. Gordon stood up with a small grunt and walked across the cargo hold. He opened a waste disposal chute and dropped the collar inside. Kira heard it clang and rattle as it fell down into the ship's incinerator. Good riddance, Gordon muttered. He turned back to Kira and held out his hand. Come on. You need food and rest. The cargo hold is no place to sleep. Kira stared at his hand. In Valorian culture, touching hands was a sign of deep trust. She had not trusted anyone in so long. But slowly, carefully, she reached out and placed her hand in his. Gordon's grip was warm and steady as he helped her to her feet. He led her through the narrow corridors of the Wayfinder. The ship was small and old. The walls had been painted many times, and the floor had scuff marks from years of use. But everything was clean and well maintained. It felt nothing like the dark, filthy hold of the slave transport. Gordon stopped at a door and pressed a button. It slid open to reveal a small room with a bunk, a desk, and a tiny bathroom. This is the spare crew quarters, Gordon said. It's not much, but the bed is comfortable and the shower works. There are clean clothes in the locker. They'll be too big for you, but you can roll up the sleeves and legs. Kira stepped inside and looked around. The room was small, but it had a window showing the stars outside. A real window, not a screen. She had not seen real stars since the slavers took her. Thank you, she whispered. Gordon nodded. I'll bring you some food in a few minutes. The galley's not fancy, but I make a decent vegetable stew. That work for you? Yes. Valorians eat plants. No meat. Good thing I'm not much of a meat eater myself then. Gordon started to leave, but Kira's voice stopped him at the door. Why are you helping me? Gordon was quiet for a long moment. He kept his back to her, one hand resting on the door frame. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded older and sadder than before. "I had a daughter once," he said. "Her name was Sarah. She was about your age when we lost her. There was a raid on the colony where we lived. By the time I got there it was too late." He paused and took a deep breath. "I couldn't save her. But I can help you. And I will." Before Kira could respond, Gordon walked away down the corridor. 20 minutes later, there was a gentle knock on her door. Kira, who had been standing by the window staring at the stars, jumped at the sound. But it was just Gordon, holding a tray with a large bowl of steaming stew and a cup of water. "Eat slow," he said, setting the tray on the desk. "Your stomach's probably not used to real food." Kira ate carefully, and the warm stew tasted better than anything she could remember. She was halfway through the bowl when an alarm beeped somewhere in the ship. Gordon's communication device buzzed on his belt. "Stay here and stay quiet," Gordon said, his voice suddenly all business. He left the room quickly, and Kira heard his footsteps hurrying toward the ship's bridge. She crept to the door and pressed her ear against it. She could hear Gordon's voice, though he was speaking too quietly to understand the words. Then she heard another voice, scratchy and mechanical through the ship's communication system. "Attention Wayfinder. This is Station Authority. We have reports of escaped contraband from a registered transport vessel. Valorian female, juvenile, purple skin. Have you seen or harbored any such individual?" Kira's heart started racing again. They were looking for her. They were going to take her back. Gordon's voice came through clear and steady. "Negative, Station Authority. I've been loading cargo for the past 3 hours. Haven't seen anyone matching that description. My ship is sealed and registered clean. We need to verify with a scan, Captain Pierce. Be my guest. But make it quick. I've got a schedule to keep and I'm burning fuel sitting here." Kira heard mechanical sounds as the station ran their scanners over the ship. She held her breath. Could they detect her? Would the scanners show her hiding in this room? After what felt like forever, the station authority's voice returned. "Scan complete. No unregistered life signs detected. You're clear to depart, Wayfinder. Safe travels. Appreciated, Authority. Wayfinder out." Kira heard Gordon's footsteps returning. He appeared at her door and she saw something new in his expression. Determination. "We're leaving," he said. "I'm setting course for the frontier colonies. It'll take us 8 days, but once we get there you'll be outside Syndicate territory. They can't touch you there." "You lied to them," Kira said. "You could get in trouble." Gordon shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time. Won't be the last." He turned to leave, then paused. "Get some rest, kid. Tomorrow I'll teach you how to navigate. Everyone on my crew pulls their weight." As Gordon walked away, Kira felt something she had not felt in months. Not just safety but something more. Something that felt almost like hope. This strange, unpredictable human had lied to the authorities for her. Had given her food and shelter and freedom. Maybe she had been wrong about humans. Or maybe she had just been lucky enough to find one of the good ones. 5 days into their journey, Gordon brought the Wayfinder into a small refueling station on the edge of civilized space. Kira had spent those days learning the ship's systems, helping Gordon with basic maintenance, and slowly becoming comfortable in her new environment. She had even started to smile occasionally, something Gordon noticed but never mentioned. The refueling station was a cramped facility that orbited a dead moon. Only a dozen ships could dock there at once, and most of them were old cargo haulers like the Wayfinder. Gordon had chosen the station specifically because it was quiet and out of the way. The kind of place where people minded their own business. "Stay on the ship," Gordon told Kira as he prepared to meet with the fuel attendant. "Keep the door locked. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Kira nodded and watched from the bridge window as Gordon walked across the docking platform toward the station's main building. She felt safe here. The ship was her home now, and Gordon was teaching her how to be useful. Yesterday he had shown her how to calculate jump coordinates. Today he had promised to teach her about the engine systems. She was reading through a navigation manual when she heard heavy footsteps on the docking ramp. Multiple footsteps. Not Gordon's familiar steady walk, but several people moving fast and hard. Kira's hearts began to race. She ran to the door controls and checked the external camera. What she saw made her blood turn cold. 4 figures in black armor were climbing the ramp toward the ship's entrance. The one in front was tall and broad, with the distinctive ridge-backed appearance of a Krillthan. Even through the camera, Kira could see the red Syndicate symbol on his shoulder plate. These were not station workers. These were slavers. The lead Krillthan pulled out a device and attached it to the door panel. Sparks flew, and Kira heard the lock mechanism grinding as it was forced open. She ran. Her mind raced as fast as her feet. Where could she hide? The cargo hold was too obvious. Her quarters had no lock strong enough to keep them out. The engine room was too hot and too dangerous. Then she remembered. 3 days ago, Gordon had shown her a hidden compartment. He had been doing routine maintenance and opened a floor panel in the corridor near the galley. Emergency supplies, he had explained. And sometimes, emergency hiding space. I've helped a few people over the years who needed to disappear for a while. Kira found the panel and pulled it open. The space beneath was narrow and dark, barely big enough for her to curl up inside. She squeezed herself in and pulled the panel closed above her head just as she heard the main door burst open. Search every compartment, a deep voice commanded. It was rough and cruel, speaking in the trade language most spacers used. The girl is here. I can smell Valorian fear. Kira pressed her hands over her mouth to keep from making any sound. Her mandibles wanted to click, but she forced them to stay still. Above her, she heard heavy boots stomping through the ship. Doors slammed open. Equipment crashed to the floor. Captain Pierce, a voice shouted from outside the ship. Gordon's voice. Stay back, human, the Krylthan responded. Kira heard him moving toward the entrance. Through a tiny gap in the floor panel, Kira could see Gordon being shoved into the ship by 2 of the armored figures. His hands were empty, held up at shoulder height. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp and alert, taking in everything. The Krylthan enforcer stepped forward. He was even bigger than Kira had thought, nearly 7 feet tall with arms as thick as support beams. A long scar ran down the left side of his face. My name is Thax, the Krylthan said. I work for the Syndicate. We've tracked our property to this vessel. You will tell me where the Valorian girl is hiding, and we will leave peacefully. Gordon looked at him without expression. I told the station authority days ago. I haven't seen any Valorian girl. You're wasting your time. Thax smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. I don't think I am. He nodded to his crew. Tear this ship apart. The 3 other slavers spread out, opening every locker, checking every storage space. One of them walked right over the panel where Kira was hiding, and she had to bite her own hand to keep from crying out in fear. Gordon stood very still in the center of the corridor. His eyes tracked each of the slavers as they searched, but he said nothing. You know what I think, human? Thax said, walking slowly around Gordon like a predator circling prey. I think you're lying. I think you found our property and decided to keep it. Maybe you thought you could sell a young Valorian on the frontier markets. Maybe you have other plans. Either way, you're going to tell me where she is. I don't know what you're talking about, Gordon said calmly. Thax moved faster than Kira expected. His fist slammed into Gordon's stomach, and Gordon doubled over with a grunt of pain. But he did not fall. He straightened back up slowly, breathing hard. Where is she? Thax demanded. Not here, Gordon gasped. Another punch, this time to Gordon's face. Kira heard the crack of impact and saw blood spray from Gordon's nose. She wanted to scream, to jump out and tell them to stop, but Gordon had told her to hide. She had to trust him. Gordon staggered but stayed on his feet. Still not here, he said through bloody teeth. Thax hit him again. And again. Each impact made Kira flinch in her hiding spot. Gordon fell to his knees after the 5th punch, but when Thax grabbed his collar and pulled him close, Gordon looked him straight in the eye. You can beat me all day, Gordon said quietly. Won't change the facts. There's no one here but me. One of the other slavers called out from the engine room. Nothing here, boss. No sign of the target. Another one emerged from the crew quarters. Quarters are clean. Thax threw Gordon to the floor in frustration. This isn't over, human. We'll be watching this station. If that girl shows her face, we'll know. He turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Gordon, who was struggling to sit up against the wall. The Syndicate doesn't forget. We never stop hunting what belongs to us. The 4 slavers stomped down the ramp and disappeared into the station. Through her tiny gap, Kira could see Gordon lying on the floor, breathing heavily. Blood dripped from his nose and mouth. One of his eyes was already swelling shut. She wanted to help him, but Gordon had taught her to be patient. To wait until it was truly safe. She counted to 100 just like he had taught her with the collar. When she finally pushed the panel open and climbed out, her whole body was shaking. Gordon looked up at her and tried to smile, though it clearly hurt. You did good, kid. Stayed quiet. You're hurt, Kira said, kneeling beside him. I've had worse. Gordon let her help him to his feet. He limped toward the bridge, leaving drops of blood on the floor. But we need to leave. No. Thax wasn't lying. The syndicate never stops hunting. Kira helped him into the pilot's seat. Gordon's hands shook as he powered up the engines, but his voice was steady when he spoke into the station communication system. Wayfinder requesting immediate departure clearance. Wayfinder, you're cleared for departure. Safe travels. As the ship pulled away from the station, Kira brought Gordon the medical kit. While she cleaned the blood from his face, she finally understood something important. This human had taken a beating to protect her. He could have told them where she was hiding. He could have saved himself pain. But he had not. He had kept his promise. The Wayfinder had barely cleared the refueling station when the proximity alarm started screaming. Gordon, still bleeding from his injuries, looked at the scanner display and cursed under his breath. They followed us, he said, gripping the controls tighter. Kira, strap yourself into the co-pilot seat. Now. Kira ran to the chair beside Gordon and fumbled with the safety harness. Through the forward window, she could see the black shape of another ship accelerating toward them. It was sleeker and newer than the Wayfinder, built for speed rather than cargo. That's a Syndicate Hunter ship, Gordon said, his voice tight with pain. Faster than us, better weapons. We can't outrun it in open space. He changed course sharply, and Kira felt the ship lurch beneath her. But maybe we can lose them somewhere they won't want to follow. Ahead of them, Kira saw what Gordon meant. A massive asteroid field stretched across their path like a wall of tumbling rock. Some of the asteroids were as small as the Wayfinder. Others were as large as buildings. They spun and crashed into each other in a chaotic dance that looked impossible to navigate. You're going in there? Kira asked, her mandibles clicking nervously. We're going in there, Gordon corrected. He reached across and activated the panel in front of her. Screens lit up showing weapon systems and defensive shields. I need you to learn fast, kid. See that red button? That controls the aft gun turret. The joystick moves it left and right, up and down. That trigger fires it. I don't know how to shoot, Kira said, panic rising in her voice. You're about to learn. Gordon winced as he pulled the control stick, sending the Wayfinder diving toward the asteroid field. Remember what I taught you about counting? When things get scary, count backwards from 10. Keeps your mind focused. The ship entered the asteroid field and immediately everything became chaos. Gordon twisted the controls left, then right, then dove down to avoid a spinning chunk of rock the size of a house. The proximity alarm kept screaming. Behind them, the Hunter ship followed, firing bright blue energy bolts that sizzled past the Wayfinder's hull. Shields are holding, Gordon said through gritted teeth. But not for long. Kira, can you see them on your screen? Kira looked at the display in front of her. A small red dot showed the Hunter ship's position behind them. Her hands found the joystick, and the turret camera view appeared on her main screen. She could see the black ship weaving between asteroids, getting closer. I see them, she said. Good. Don't try to hit their engines or anything fancy. Just make them nervous. Make them slow down. Kira pressed the trigger. The turret fired and bright orange bolts shot backward toward the Hunter ship. They missed by a wide margin, striking an asteroid instead and causing it to break into smaller pieces. 10, Gordon said calmly, even as he jerked the ship sideways to avoid another collision. 9, 8, 7, Kira whispered, firing again. This time her shots came closer to the Hunter ship, forcing it to veer away. 6, 5, 4. Gordon's voice stayed steady even though sweat dripped down his bruised face. The Hunter ship fired back. Energy bolts slammed into the Wayfinder's rear shields and the whole ship shook. Warning lights started flashing on Gordon's console. Shields at 40%, Gordon said. Kira, you need to slow them down. I can't keep dodging forever. A massive asteroid tumbled toward them from the right. Gordon pulled up hard, and Kira felt her stomach drop as the ship climbed almost vertically. The asteroid passed beneath them so close that Kira could see the ice crystals on its surface. The Hunter ship had to go around the asteroid, which gave them a few extra seconds. Kira kept firing, her aim getting better with each shot. One of her bolts finally struck the Hunter ship's forward shield, causing it to flare bright blue. Good hit, Gordon shouted. Then he grunted in pain as he had to wrench the controls again. But they're still coming. The Hunter ship was faster and more maneuverable. It closed the distance between them and its weapons fired in a steady stream. The Wayfinder's shields flashed again and again under the assault. Shields at 20%, Gordon said. His breathing was getting heavier. Kira could see blood seeping through his shirt where Thax had hit him. I need you to take the controls. What? Kira stared at him in shock. I can't fly through this. Yes, you can. Gordon's hands stayed on the controls, but he looked at her with those calm brown eyes. I'm going to keep flying, but I need to reroute power to the shields. That means I can't watch all the instruments. You're going to be my eyes. When I say left, you tell me how far left. When I say clear, you tell me if it's really clear. Understand? Kira nodded, her heart's pounding so hard she thought they might burst. Gordon's fingers flew over the engineering panel, redirecting power from non-essential systems to the shields. The lights in the bridge dimmed, and Kira felt the engines surge with new energy. Shields back to 40%, Gordon said. But we lost some speed. Kira, what's behind us? Kira looked at her scanner. The Hunter ship is 300 meters back. Coming fast. And ahead. Kira looked at the forward sensors. Big asteroid cluster, 30 seconds away. Lots of small rocks. Perfect. Gordon smiled, though it looked more like a grimace of pain. Small rocks are our friends. Hard for their targeting systems to track us through debris. He pushed the wayfinder into the cluster of smaller asteroids. Rocks pinged off their hull like hail. The Hunter ship followed but had to slow down to avoid damage. Kira kept firing, forcing them to stay cautious. Left side clear? Gordon asked. Kira checked her scanner. Clear for 200 meters, then big rock. Gordon rolled the ship left, threading between two tumbling asteroids. Kira's stomach flipped, but she kept watching her instruments. Above us. Clear. Gordon pulled up just as the Hunter ship fired again. The energy bolts passed through the space where they had been a second earlier and struck an asteroid instead, breaking it apart in a shower of fragments. They're getting desperate, Gordon said. That's good. Desperate people make mistakes. As if proving his point, the Hunter ship accelerated too fast and clipped a spinning rock. Its shields flared and it had to veer away suddenly. Now Kira. While they're recovering. Kira aimed carefully and fired. Her shot struck the Hunter ship's weakened shields in the same spot, and this time something happened. Sparks erupted from the ship's left side, and it began to spin out of control. I hit them. Kira shouted. Keep firing. Kira fired again and again. The Hunter ship tried to stabilize, but it was too close to a large asteroid. It clipped the rock's edge with a shower of metal fragments, then its engines sputtered and died. The ship began drifting, powerless, tumbling slowly in the asteroid field. Gordon let out a long breath and reduced their speed. That's it. They're done. Nice shooting, kid. Kira stared at her hands on the controls. They were shaking, but she had done it. She had actually done it. Gordon set a new course away from the asteroid field toward open space. Frontier Station Kepler is 6 hours away. We'll make it there before they get that ship working again. He looked at her with something like pride in his swollen eyes. You're a natural pilot, Kira. Better than I was at your age. Kira felt warmth spread through her chest. Not fear this time, but something else. Something good. She had helped save them both. She had found a skill she never knew she had. And most importantly, she had a human who believed in her enough to trust her with his life. Frontier Station Kepler appeared on the view screen like a ring of light against the darkness of space. It was bigger than any station Kira had ever seen, with dozens of docking arms reaching out like the legs of a metal spider. Ships of all sizes came and went, and bright lights marked the busy commercial districts where traders sold goods from across the galaxy. Gordon had barely spoken during the 6-hour journey. His injuries had gotten worse, and Kira had insisted he let her pilot the final approach while he rested. She had been nervous at first, but Gordon had talked her through each step, and she had brought the wayfinder in for a smooth landing on docking arm 7. Not bad for your first real landing, Gordon said with a weak smile. His face was swollen and bruised, and he moved slowly as he stood from the co-pilot's seat. Better than my first attempt. I scraped half the paint off my instructor's ship. A medical team was waiting at the docking ramp when they opened the door. Gordon had sent a message ahead requesting assistance, though he had not mentioned why he needed it. 2 human medics helped him onto a stretcher while a third scanned his injuries with a handheld device. 3 cracked ribs, severe bruising, possible concussion, the medic reported. Sir, you should have sought medical attention hours ago. I was a bit busy, Gordon replied, then looked at Kira. Stay with the ship. I'll be back soon. But Kira followed the medical team anyway, staying close behind as they wheeled Gordon through the station corridors. No one tried to stop her. The medical center was clean and bright, nothing like the dark facilities on the stations where the slavers had taken her. The doctors worked quickly, treating Gordon's injuries while Kira waited in the hallway outside. An hour later, a tall human woman in a military uniform approached Kira. She had short gray hair and sharp green eyes that seemed to see everything. 3 silver stars decorated her shoulder, marking her as someone important. "You must be Kira," the woman said, her voice firm but not unkind. "I'm Commander Patricia Hayes. Gordon sent me a message when you entered Kepler space. He told me about your situation." Kira's mandibles clicked nervously. "Is Gordon in trouble? For helping me? Trouble?" Commander Hayes almost smiled. "Gordon Pierce has pulled stunts like this before. He has a bad habit of picking up strays and smuggling them to safety. Usually, I pretend not to notice." She gestured for Kira to follow her down the hallway. "But this time is different. The syndicate has been getting bolder lately. They're pushing into frontier space, claiming they have legal rights to their property. We need to make sure you're protected properly." They walked to an office with windows overlooking the docking bays. Commander Hayes sat behind a desk and pulled up information on a computer screen. "Frontier Station Kepler is independent territory," she explained. "We don't recognize syndicate slave contracts. Once you're registered here as a legal resident, they can't touch you. The problem is you're a minor. Valorian law says anyone under 18 cycles needs a legal guardian." Kira felt her heart sink. "What does that mean?" "It means someone needs to be responsible for you. I've looked into your case. Your home colony was destroyed in the raid. No surviving family members." Commander Hayes's expression softened slightly. "I'm authorized to offer you formal adoption. You would become my ward, live in station housing, receive education and job training. It's a good life, Kira. Safe and stable." It did sound good. Safe and stable were things Kira had not had in a long time. But something felt wrong about it. She thought about Gordon, lying in the medical center with cracked ribs because he had protected her. She thought about the past 6 days on the Wayfinder, learning to navigate and pilot, feeling useful and needed. "Can I think about it?" Kira asked quietly. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Kira returned to the medical center and found Gordon sitting up in bed, his torso wrapped in bandages. The swelling on his face had gone down a bit, and someone had cleaned the dried blood away. He looked tired but alert. "The commander made you an offer, didn't she?" Gordon asked when Kira sat in the chair beside his bed. "Yes. She said I could live on the station. Be safe." Gordon nodded slowly. "That's probably the smart choice. Patricia is a good person. She'd take care of you. What do you think I should do?" Kira asked. Gordon was quiet for a long moment. He looked out the window at the ships coming and going in the docking bays. "I think you should do whatever makes you feel whole again. You've been through hell, kid. You deserve stability and safety and all the things a normal life can give you." "What if I don't want a normal life?" Kira said, the words coming out before she could stop them. "What if I want to stay on the Wayfinder? With you?" Gordon turned to look at her, surprise clear on his bruised face. "Kira, life on a cargo hauler isn't easy. It's long hours, strange places, sometimes dangerous situations. You saw what happened with Thax. That won't be the last time someone causes trouble." "I know," Kira said. "But you taught me to pilot. You taught me to navigate and shoot and count backwards when I'm scared. You made me feel useful. Like I matter." She looked down at her hands. "Commander Hayes would give me safety. But you gave me something more. You gave me a purpose." Gordon's eyes became wet, though he blinked the tears away quickly. He reached out and put his weathered hand on top of Kira's smaller purple one. "I'd be honored to have you as my crew," he said quietly. "But you need to understand something. I'm not replacing your real family. I can't be your father. That's not what this is." "I know," Kira said. "But maybe you could be something else. Maybe you could be my captain. And my friend. And the person who saved my life." Gordon smiled then, really smiled for the first time since Kira had met him. It made the lines around his eyes crinkle, and despite the bruises, he looked younger somehow. Happier. 2 days later, after Gordon was released from the medical center, they stood together in the station's administrative office. Commander Hayes processed the paperwork that made Gordon Kira's legal guardian and registered her as an official crew member of the Wayfinder. Patricia looked at them both with something that might have been approval. "Take care of each other," she said as they prepared to leave. "And Gordon? Try not to collect any more strays for at least a few months. My paperwork pile is already too high." Back on the Wayfinder, Gordon led Kira to the cargo hold where he kept his maintenance supplies. He pulled out a can of white paint and 2 brushes. "Every member of my crew gets their name on the roster," he explained, pointing to a metal plate near the main door. Only one name was painted there currently in neat white letters: Gordon Pierce, Captain. He handed Kira a brush. "You do the honors." Kira's hand shook as she dipped the brush in paint. Slowly, carefully, she painted her name below Gordon's. Kira, Navigator. When she finished, Gordon reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a navigation tablet, old and worn, with scratches on the casing and a screen that had been replaced at least once. "This belonged to my daughter Sarah," Gordon said softly. "She wanted to be a navigator just like you. I want you to have it." Kira took the tablet with both hands, holding it like the precious gift it was. "I'll take good care of it. I know you will." Gordon walked to the pilot's seat and began the pre-flight checklist. "Ready for your first official mission as crew?" Kira strapped herself into the co-pilot seat and activated her navigation console. The tablet Gordon had given her synced automatically with the ship systems, and star charts appeared on her screen. She felt the engines rumble to life beneath her, felt the ship preparing to lift off and carry them to whatever came next. "Ready, Captain," she said. The Wayfinder rose from the docking platform and turned toward the stars. Behind them, Frontier Station Kepler grew smaller. Ahead of them lay the vast darkness of space, full of unknown dangers and possibilities. But Kira was not afraid anymore. She had a ship. She had a purpose. And she had Gordon, the strange, unpredictable human who had looked at a scared slave girl and seen someone worth saving. Someone worth teaching. Someone worth keeping. As they jumped to faster-than-light speed and the stars stretched into lines of light around them, Kira understood something important. Family was not just about blood or biology. Sometimes family was the person who sat beside you in the co-pilot seat. The person who taught you to count backwards from 10 when you were scared. The person who took a beating rather than give up your hiding place. Sometimes family was a choice, and she had made hers.